G'day ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another video. So in this video, we're gonna go over both of my R31 Skylines that I have currently and sort of talk about why they're so underrated and how not a lot of people really know about these cars until they sort of find out about them and become infatuated with them like myself. So here we have my two R31 Skylines. So I've had this car for 11 years now, and I've had this car for probably almost a year now. I'll get a bit more in depth in them in a second and show you guys around, but I had this video idea in my head and I sort of wanted to talk to you guys about, like, you know, the questions I get asked a lot about these cars and why they're so special. Why do a lot of people get involved in them and get infatuated by them, but not a lot of people have heard about them? So in my 27 years of existence, since I was 16, I've had, this is my 11th R31 Skyline. Fuck off, flies. So this is my 11th 31 and this is my actual first 31, and I've had many in between. And in a lot of years of owning them, they are still one of my favorite cars, especially the Australian delivered ones, because they were like the budget sort of VL back in the day. And even now, they're sort of creeping up in price, but they're still a budget Skyline when you compare them to other cars like the R32, R33. So like my R32, we have tucked away in the garage in the corner here. These cars are a lot more expensive, a lot more iconic than the washing machines here, or the fridges. First of all, before we get into it, I do want to apologise if you hear any construction noise over the back. There is so much going on and I can't escape it in the year and a half I've been here. So bear with me on this one, but there's no wind today, which is good. I thought it'd be a good day to film. So here is my 1990 R31 Skyline. So this is my beloved R31, my first car, my second car ever, and my first R31, which I've had for 11 years now. Bought in 2012 and it's still going strong. So this thing has everything I could possibly do to it besides turbo, and you guys will probably be familiar with it on the channel. If you're not, this car has pretty much everything underneath all done. Coilovers, every adjustable arm on it. It's got 411s, hydraulic handbrake, it's got twin calipers at the back. It was a drift car. I still do drift it, but not crazily like I used to back in the day. But I love this car so much. I love the road presence it gives off, and this car is just, oh, it's so fun to drive. So you got the cage in the back, Mellow Fabrications half cage. Originally this was a GX car, so it's a 5-speed manual, factory manual car, and I've converted it to a Series 1 silhouette interior, or Series 2, sorry, Series 2 silhouette interior, which I had off a wrecked car years ago, and I did all the two-tone, everything myself. So in the 10 years I've owned this, I always get a lot of questions from, like, you know, how are they reliability wise? What should I look out for? I've already done a video all on that, so I'll link that in the description of like things to look out for when you're buying one of these cars, so I won't go into that. But out of all the 12 cars I currently own, this is still up there with one of my favorites currently in all the fleet. So getting on to the other one, so this is my 1989 TI Skyline. It is original TI, it just doesn't have the honeycomb front grille and the bonnet. It's the only thing that's different, but it is original TI Skyline. So if you guys haven't seen, we have been doing a full revival on this car. It was left in my buddy's front yard for about 3 years. It just sat at the front, no cover, no nothing on it, and it just, yeah, it got really neglected. But we revived it, brought it from the dead, got it pretty cheap. It is one of the most immaculate Skylines I've ever owned, and one of the cleanest cars I currently have at the moment. It is perfect. This car is amazing. It's a bit dusty at the moment, but this car is just beautiful, and it drives just as good as it looks. It is absolutely a gem to drive. It is so straight. It is just absolutely, I'm gonna keep saying it, it's immaculate. It's absolutely immaculate, and I'm scared to freaking move this, drive it around, whatever. We got it going. All it needed was fuel pump, injectors, clean the whole fuel system on it, and ran for the first time in 3 years. And I've actually been driving it here and there, and it's such a nice car to drive. So we've been cleaning it up. We put some TI wheels on it, gave them a bit of a clean up, and the car looks nice and all original now. And it's sitting on king springs, so it's slightly lowered, and we've got the pea shooters at the back. They look so good. But now guys, this car is actually currently for sale. I did put it up for sale last week. I've had so much interest in it. I haven't really been like going out of my way to sell it because I don't want to sell it. So I've just been sort of dealing with people backwards and forwards, but I'll put it up for sale, and if I get what I want for it, I will sell it because I just want the room. I'm so reluctant to sell it because I just don't want to get rid of it. But if it does go, it does go. If it doesn't, I'm happy to keep it. But yeah, I'm not in any rush to sell it, but it is up for sale at the moment if you look on Marketplace. Maybe by the time this video is out, it might not be here, but I'm not, like I said, not in a rush to sell it. If it goes, it goes. If it doesn't, I'm happy to keep it for a while and let it gain a bit more value because it is such a nice car. So it's pretty much a basic overview of the two mighty R31 Skylines that I currently own. And a big reason I wanted to make this video, I was just thinking the other day in the house, I'm like, I haven't really made a video on why these cars are so like underrated. And what I mean by underrated is just like, not many people sort of really delve into them a lot, like the 33s, the 32s, the 35s, 34s, and they are a forgotten Skyline, but not as forgotten as the R30s. The DR30s, the R30s, They're sort of the forgotten Skyline. I think these cars have really started to come out of their shells a bit, and people are starting to sort of admire them for what they are. And just like I was 10 years ago when these things were a couple $100, I never used to spend over $500 on mint Skylines back in the day. The most expensive Skyline I ever bought was this one, which was $2,500. And I used to buy them back in the day for slabs of beer. You know, I think $46 was the cheapest Skyline I got back in the day. And I bought a Silhouette and a TI together for $600, manual Silhouette TI. So a lot of deals back in the day that were just, yeah, very hard to come by in this day and age. I think they're very iconic in the way they look, and then when they're not modified like this one, they look very grandpa-y, especially the Australian delivered ones, where the coupes and the HR passages look a lot more sleek, a lot more menacing road presence in my opinion. But these cars, there's just something about them. You know, the Pintaras, the TRXs with the body kits, the Silhouettes, the GDS2s, GDS1s, there's just something about them. They had all different varieties and styles of the cars. So back in the day when you could get them cheap, they were just as much fun as they are now. Even though they're a little bit pricey, I think they're not that expensive for what they are. People are asking silly money for them, but for some reason, a lot of the times they are selling. They are selling for silly money, just like those things over there, or even these things here. So yeah, big reason, I sort of want to compare stock versus modified too, which would be good, but under the engine bay, they're pretty much the same. I'll pop the bonnets in a minute, but we'll go have a sit in the modified one. I always say modified, it's not heavily modified, but compared to the TI, it is quite a different story. So if we get into the beast here, not really much differences, but I love the Silhouette wheel, I love the tri-spoke wheel. The TI does have a tri-spoke wheel, but originally they don't have this really nice tri-spoke wheel with the Silhouette badge in the middle. I've got a 6-gauge cluster, 166,000. This car has about 240,000, but it originally has a 4-gauge cluster, so you don't have your battery, you don't have your oil pressure, you just have your coolant, and you just have your fuel. And coming over here, not really much else in this car. I've got some Sony speakers in it, I've got a head unit. Yeah, got our 5-speed manual. So it's still an NA box, and it's got a single-piece tail shaft. We've got a hydraulic handbrake here. So it's actually in the stock handbrake location. I do have the stock handbrake over the back here, but it's just sitting under the seat because I have nowhere to really mount it. I do want to incorporate the stock handbrake somewhere around here, but yeah, it's not the end of the world. But here's the back with the cage. See, originally the interior of this one was brown, so it has the brown headlining here, but I've actually kept it in there just as a remnant of what it used to be. It's a disgusting interior. I hate the brown, I hate the blue. But that one's got the brown still, but I do like the brown interior in the TIs way more than the blue. But yeah, so yeah, this interior was all pinched out of a Silhouette that I had, and cost me nothing to replace everything. I love the black dash pad with the grey underneath. I reckon it looks really good. I've always loved the black and grey interiors and the Silo seats. I've got the rear seats at home, but obviously with the cage in the back, we don't run them. But yeah, that's about it for this one. You've got 3 pedals, wind-up windows in this one. So this one's a GX, so we've got manual mirrors, manual wind-up windows. It does have cruise control. Does it work? Sure. Intermittent wiper stalk, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this one. Nothing crazy inside. I like my interiors to look stockish. I used to run a deep dish wheel, but don't really anymore. And same with buckets. I just like the stockish sort of interiors. All my cars pretty much have stock interiors. So let's get out and have a look at the TI. One thing, I don't think I mentioned it before, I named this car Lawrence. Yeah, I don't know why, I just did. So let's go have a sit in Lawrence the Skyline. And just when you open the door, the smell that comes out of this car is so much more pronounced than the smell that comes out of this car. It's a very 80s smell. It always smells like my VL. My VL's got the sandalwood interior, so if we sit in the TI, yeah, it's much nicer in this car. It's a nice place to be. So we have Automagic, pretty much all the same stuff. It's got an aftermarket head unit too. All the controls work. Yeah, this one has a 6-gauge cluster too, which would have been factory in this one. I am missing a blanking plate there. It's like the only thing I'm missing in this interior. But yeah, so we have a look at the TI interior. It's very nice in here. This car's been really well looked after inside, and door cards are all immaculate. All the power windows work, door switches. I've got the battery disconnected at the moment, so yeah, it's got really nice material in the visors. The headlining's in mint condition, absolutely mint condition. Same with the back here. The back's really nice, and all the carpets and stuff. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the interiors of these things. They're not really much else going on. The beasts next to each other, but next to each other, like, yeah, they just look so, I love comparing a modified one to a standard one, because I haven't really had the sort of two together before. Yeah, not really much else to go on in these car, like interiors. When I drive this car, I want to fall asleep in it because it's so comfortable. Even with the lowered king springs, it just rides so freaking nice. And that car, that's got the later model max speeding rods coilovers in it, which is the T6s, and they ride much better than the old ones, but still it's like driving a tram. Now I have what people would call their partners in 2011, the bays open. So we have the stock TI here, and we have the mighty, pretty much stock looking GX engine here. Let's start with the GX. So what's been done to this thing? Not much. So when I bought this car, you guys probably know a million times I've said it, was turbo when I bought it back in 2012. I ended up getting it NA cheaper because I was on my P's and my 180 was turbo because that's my first car and I didn't want to have 2 turbo on my P's. So this one NA, that one turbo. So the only moment you can really tell it's been turboed is under the headlight here. You can sort of see, let's have a closer look. It has been cut right there, and that's where the cooler piping used to go through. So this would actually continue straight along here. You can see right there it's been cut down, and that's where the front mount used to run on this. It used to run up through there. It hasn't been cut or anything, but this pipe under here was cut to run the cooler piping. So this car actually used to be an autocross car, like an autocross, like dirt sort of circuit car. The guy only used it like twice with the turbo setup, so it hadn't really done any events. He ended up selling the car to me NA. It had the 818B cam in it, which was the, I think it was a GDS cam or a cop, I think, yeah, GDS cam. So idle, it has a little bit of a lump to it, which sounds really good. And then we got the Hurricane extractors. So they're the 3 into 2 into 1 extractors down there. I got the shortened intake. Shortened, pretty much you just take the elbow piece off and put the pod filter there. Not a lot of people like doing this because it's closer to the extractors, so you get a bit more heat soaking. But I guess when you're like on song, you just get a bit more induction noise. That's how I sort of ran it while I've drifted it. Max speed and rod coilovers here with the adjustable dampening and everything on it. Really nice. There's our cruise control module that runs to the throttle body. And that's pretty much it for the engine bay of this one. Not really much going on, honestly. It looks pretty stock. I haven't cleaned it in a while. It's pretty dirty, so I got to give it a good clean. And then yeah, once we give this a nice clean, put it in the garage for a while, we're going to be putting a little hair dryer on the side of this thing. So yeah, once we get the VL sort of up to a stage where it's running, I'm going to start to get this thing ready for boost as well. So it should be really good. Now TI, let's have a look in here. First thing you probably noticed is we have new fuel filter. That's it. That's it. I haven't really like cleaned this bay much since we got it out of the revival. It was just very dusty, so I just wiped it with a dry rag. But got the battery sitting here. It's actually the battery from my 180. It's an old one, so I got to get another battery for this car. But other than that, like it's yeah, bone stock. Hasn't got the snorkel. I do have a spare one at my other house, snorkel. It runs over here, and it just screws down to this little plastic screw there. We are missing a power steering belt, so yeah, this doesn't have air conditioning either. Oh well, big whoop. So in the last video we did on this car, we actually put a new manifold gasket on it because it had a huge leak. So it's fixed that. It runs like a freaking dream. And yeah, look at this thing. I love looking at this car. Even when it's out the back in the backyard, I open my window and just stare at it. So yeah, just backtracking a bit, guys. There's just something about R31 Skylines that I've always been infatuated by. I've driven a couple turbo ones. They're fun, but thrashing an NA one like this. If you guys haven't seen, Clay Wong did do a review on this car. It was awesome. He loved it. He ended up going out and buying one himself. I think he sold it now. You have to have a real love for these things to really enjoy it, but even when you don't, you can understand why they're so much fun. And I thought it'd just be cool to get them out together because I am selling this one soon, so do a video on them together, sort of say goodbye. I probably end up keeping this, who knows. If I did have the TI honeycomb grill in the bonnet, I would freaking daily the fuck out of it. But I've got too many dailies, so I don't need another one, and this thing will probably get stolen if I park it somewhere. But yeah, it's just, oh, look at them together. Now, one thing I've always wanted ever since I was a little kid, and even, you know, when I started liking R31 Skylines, one thing I really wanted, I've always wanted a coupe, a HR31 coupe. That is the sort of Skyline that I would work my ass off to get, and one day I hope to add it to the collection. I'll probably, like, with the prices these things are going at, I wouldn't go much more with the Australian Delivereds, but I would try and get a HR coupe, even if it's a shell, and just build it over time. I do have a spare RB20 turbo at home, motor. So if I could find like a coupe shell or something, I'd love to build one. I'll never ever get rid of this car. It stays with me forever. Seems we're talking about, you know, the hype and, you know, what's so good about these cars. Some of the letdowns of these cars. So the big things that let down these cars would probably have to be the fact is that they never came turbo, the Australian Delivered RB30 Skylines. The VLs did, but these never actually came turbo. Now, to tell the differences on the Australian delivered cars versus the Japs and that, first one would be the doors have pillars, so solid pillars in the doors, versus the HRs had no, oh my god, shut up, freaking crows. So the pillarless HRs had a different roof line. The rear pillars and that were a little bit different as well, and the rear glass. The coupes had a different boot shape. The rear window line is different on the coupes as well, and they had a different boot shape, hence why the rear GDS and GDSX coupe wings don't really fit on the sedans really well. You gotta modify them. The rear ends were different. The coupes and the HRs had an IRS rear end, where these were a Borg Warner 28 spline. I think they're a BW78 Borg Warner rear end, which is a live axle rear end. But the good thing is a lot of interchangeable diffs for them. The amount of diffs I've changed on these, my god, can do them in like 20 minutes. But yeah, they were a little bit more boxy, which I really like. You either love it or hate it. And they didn't really come turbo, but a lot of different variants with the Australian ones. And obviously the Pintaros at the CA20 is a twin spark, so were horrible. And then yeah, the top of the range in the Australian would be the GDS 1s, GDS 2s. They were the best looking, sort of best packaged bucket seats, all the kind of good stuff that they come with. And the only really downfall as they get older is, you know, these things are really prone to rust. Luckily these two have no rust in them, but they do rust behind the guards here. There's like a drip, drip sort of spillway that comes under the scuttle that runs down the inner guard here, and they rot out here. So luckily when I bought this, I knew about it. I pulled the guards off, and I actually rust coated everything. It wasn't rusty, but I rust coated it all just to make sure it would survive. Now this one, I've never taken the guards off, but you know, this thing has no rust, so I'm presuming it has nothing in there. I have seen cars that look good on the outside and then take the guards off and they're rotted out on the inside. They do rust up here, they rust inside the wheel wells here in the boot, but luckily this has no rust. They do rust inside the door jams here, where the door goes on into where the hinges bolt on in the jams. But just like any old car, they have their rust spots. You know, 180s have their prone rust spots, 32s have their prone rust spots. So you just got to really find one that's been looked after and not sitting out in the elements its whole life. Now these cars didn't have as much of a racing pedigree as the 32s. They were in motorsports a lot, these cars. They did pretty well, but they weren't as successful as the R32. So that's another reason why these cars just weren't as successful. And I think the boxy design, if you look at these cars versus the R32, was a big model change and big cosmetic change for the cars as well. Obviously a bit more iconic looking cars, the 32s, but I think these things are just as iconic in their own way. They're, you know, the boxy K70, you know, MX-73 Cressida sort of look. There's so many reasons why these cars are just so cool. So enough rambling, guys. You've heard me talk for too long. We'll see you guys in the next video, and hopefully we still have this car. If not, you will definitely see this car a lot more. So take care, everyone, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.